Well, hey there, and welcome to episode 72 of Cuzzo-Op. My name is Isaiah, also known as IV, and I'm the host of today's conversation. And as always, I am joined by my cousin, my brother,
Willie, also known as Arrow to the Face.
Now, we've been killing y'all. There's a lot of episodes that came out in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. We've been on your head with it, like that. Like just Star Wars month, all through May, bang, bang. June's been coming with a couple double episode drops, bang, bang. And we don't intend to change, you know what I mean? Rest of the summer, we got content out the wazoo. We've got Deadpool making his appearance. We got some things we want to talk about. X-Men. We got a couple other TV shows that are making their season 3, season 2 resurgences. And speaking of season 2, we knew we had to stop and do an episode on a show that back in 2021 took Amazon Prime and honestly, a lot of these kind of graphic cartoon shows, that whole world by storm, by the name of Invincible. Now, 2021 came, and I got things to ask you about, Willie. Honestly, I got to hear your thoughts because we've never actually, I feel like, had a full-blown conversation about what you feel about Invincible. And really why we're here is to get into also season 2, which also dropped. I do want to talk a little bit about the episode in between. I don't know if you saw that one or if you have thoughts on that, but for those of you who are tapped in, if you want to wait and come back after you've watched it all, that's cool too. If you've watched it all, this is going to be a conversation for you. If you're interested in it, this is also a conversation for you. We're going to get into it all. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's jump in with what I said earlier. I want to hear a little bit about 2021 hits. We on the back end of a pandemic's kind of like launched in 2020. Obviously that happened. And then all of these shows start to be stifled in their delivery. And it creates this opening where we're all in front of our TVs, watching TV shows and movies, consuming streaming, and then Invincible drops on Prime. And people who I didn't even know were down for shows like this were texting me and talking to me about it. So what about you, Willie? What's your experience with that 2021 first season of Invincible? What do you think about that whole phenomenon?
Well, I mean, first things first, I want to say that I'm a fan of The Walking Dead. You know, Robert Kirkman wrote The Walking Dead in 2003, eventually became a television show, so then became a video game. I played the video game, went back, watched the show, and in the show there's Easter eggs to Invincible, characters reading the comics and everything like that, and Robert Kirkman also wrote Invincible, and so in a time where I was like, yo, what else has this dude done? I went out and found a way to read some comics of Invincible, right? But then I low-key kind of just put it away. And then the show dropped. And I was like, oh, this is what I was reading a few years ago. I wasn't necessarily locked in to say like, oh, this is it. And you know, for Amazon's sake, The Boys had premiered about 2 years earlier on Prime. And that had kind of brought people into, oh, something different in the superhero genre. We got realism and corruption within the heroes themselves and everything like that. So when Invincible drops, I'm like, ooh, I'm interested to see what comes of this, because I roughly remember some character things. I got to go back and look, but cast looks great. They've been saying they've been working on this for a while. All right, cool. And I go and I watch episode 1 like everybody else. And we all know how episode 1 ends.
Right.
And my personal feeling, and I feel the same way about The Boys in some sense, but a little bit different, is that from that first episode, people decided that they were going to be ride or die for the show because of its being different versus what the content was that they were going to be receiving itself. And so as the season kept going, I enjoyed the season. I enjoyed the relational aspects between the characters. Mostly there's one character, you know, I know that a lot of people just can't get behind, but between Omniman and his son, even Deborah, Adam Eve, Amber, you know, even though I can't really get her. All the characters, I kind of like that aspect of the show. And then, you know, season 1 ends. And I'm like, you know what? I thought it was cool. Not the best animated superhero show ever. You're not the best superhero show ever, as some people would tell you about season 1. But I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can't wait to see where they go.
Sure.
And then kind of like our episode of Cuzzo-Op here, it took a while. And then it took a while. And then I was like, is it worth it?
Mm.
And then season 2 dropped. And I don't know if you want me to get into my feelings.
Nah, I just wanted to hear a little bit about your season 1 because I think
season 1, it was cool, bro. It was cool. I enjoyed it, and I was ready to see where it went.
If you had to give it the 5 stars or the out of 10, like what would you have given season 1?
Season 1, I think it was a solid 8, bro. Solid 8, I would say.
Agree.
I think it was a cool show.
I agree. I think for me, like when I watched it and I saw that first episode, I said, "Hey, yo, that's crazy." But you know, another thing was that these episodes, this is one of those shows that it isn't all binge. It's not like you can binge it all in one go. They were releasing episodes week by week. And at the time when it came out, there were some shows that were following that formula and some that weren't. Some for production reasons, some for storytelling reasons. Like, so when they were doing it week by week, it had me. I was gripped by that. You know what I mean? You know, you see the end of the first episode, you want to see things flesh out. Right. You want to see if Invincible is going to overcome the obstacle in front of him each week, whether it be in a familial sense or a superhero sense or both. And but at the same time, this was also coming out when Marvel was losing all of its steam, starting to lose all of its steam, because when those Disney shows started dropping and Disney Plus episodes of shows started to superhero and the concept of a superhero, it kind of was starting to get that zombie feel for me, where it was like everyone is a superhero right now. And Amazon is throwing money toward another superhero concept because The Boys is so successful, you know, so here comes Kirk, you know, but then I think I came in with all these confusing ideas because I'm also a graphic novel. It's based off something else that already exists. What's the difference between this? It's almost like an American anime in the sense of it's a cartoon version of something that's already on paper. Like, what's up with that? Like, I have all these thoughts. I felt like the show continued to prove itself the more I will watch an episode after an episode after an episode after an episode. I really enjoy these characters. I enjoy the realistic aspect of the show. There are very annoying characters in this show. You know what I mean? I definitely think I wish some of them didn't return, but they did, and they had to. You know, we can get into that. But there are principles of the show that I also really, really like, too. They're like, we always talk about here at Cuzzo-Op, that morals at the end of a cartoon feels like a lost art these days. So when you watch, you know, we talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender earlier this year. Like, I like shows that make you leave and be like, man, I want to be a better person, low key. And I feel like Mark is always trying to be someone better than who he is. And I think at the end of the day, the first season left me like, okay, I want more. But it didn't, you're right. It didn't have me like, damn, I need more. It wasn't I need more. It was I want, completely bold and underlined, more. You know what I mean? And you're right. It took a long time. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the production process. The world was taken by storm. Everyone's talking about the show. The final episode comes out. We see what happens with Omniman and his son. We see what goes down. Okay, the whole time we knew he was the bad guy. Mark's realizing how bad guy he is, and he's beating his head in. We seeing memes all over the place. You know what I mean? Even in 2024, we getting people replacing that final scene, and instead of it being Omni-Man and Mark, it's Kendrick Lamar and Drake, and he's just bashing his dome in. Like, it's a part of like society at this point. But it took them up until 2022, we start getting announcements or talking about production. 2023, we're like, okay, now the first quarter comes, nothing. Second quarter comes, nothing. And then we start to get to the summer, and they're like, we know you're waiting. We promise we're coming with it. So hold on to this Adam Eve special in the meantime. Did you watch the Adam Eve special?
I did.
What did you think about the Adam Eve special?
I only really want to say one thing, I think. I'm not even going to say that this is my full-hearted opinion yet. I may have liked it more than season 2.
I thought it was amazing. And I'm with you. I don't know about that. Told you on it. Better is... You know what it is about this show, though, bro? Before we even get to the second show, this is one of my issues with the show. I can't stand Mark as a concept. Like, I know that the premise of the show, the whole concept, when you like look at the reels or the shorts on YouTube that people put up about Invincible, they're like, the whole thing is that like Mark is always holding back. Like, he's actually OP, but like he's holding back because he's afraid to accept all of what he is. And he's afraid to be like his dad, and he's afraid to do these things. So I get tired of watching him get his ass. That's really what it is for me. It's like the opposite of the one Punch Man effect. Whereas like you show up and you know One Punch Man is going to destroy the baddie in front of him every time. The Power Rangers, trope of, they're going to beat the bad guy. The bad guy is going to retreat, become a big bad guy. Here comes the Megazord. They're going to beat that bad guy. It happens every single episode. And if it's to be continued, it's just because they're prolonging the battle, but they're still going to win at the end. It's always going to happen, you know? But when I watch this show, bro, to just know he's going to get his ass whooped every episode makes it so that him as a character is not my favorite part of the show. I love everyone around him in the show. So when Adam Eve special came out, I said, yeah, they must know. They must know. Because Shorty, as a concept of a character, is gas. She's so fire, bro.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked over
you. You shocked over me not liking Mark?
I am.
Why?
Because I think when we first talked about Invincible briefly, remember, we've had small messages throughout the years. And when you pitched the concept of this episode, you said, I like what he kind of stand for. And now I'm hearing this and I'm like, yo, did you digest? Did you sit on it? And I respect it because Adam Eve is dope as hell. Like you said, she's amazing. And with Mark, I know we're going to get into the second season, but for the first season, watching him get his ass whooped over and over and over again, I'm like, you know what? He got to learn, right? And for him to end off the season on that ass whooping, I'm like, he gonna learn. And I went back and went through the whole series comic-wise after that first season, so I get it all now. And I'm like, all right, but still, the time is for him to learn. And then, you know, we'll talk season 2, but it's just like, I get you on that completely.
So in season 2,
it was just he was a punching bag rag doll. So Adam Eve felt like a breath of fresh air. And she's just a likable character. I feel like her powers are dope. Her personality is cool. Like, so, her hangout was fucking sick, bro.
So tough. Kids Next Door vibes type shit. It was fire. Yeah, man. I think I watched the special. I said, bet I'll wait. And then boom, we get to 23. They hit us with that BS about how they're splitting it into parts. They're telling us, oh, we need to do this because we want to be able to never have to do any of this ever again. So just bear with us. Do I trust y'all? Not even a little bit. But I decided not to watch any of season 2 when it came out, part 1, until part 2 came out. And then I sat and I watched them like that, stack, boom, 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 boom. And bro, the decision to do that, self-control, proud of myself. I feel like the experience of watching this season back to back, like just was very enjoyable. I will not lie to you. It was different than season 1 where I told you I watched the episodes as they were launching each week. To be able to watch like 5-6 hours of this show stacked, sit on the couch, watch 2-3 episodes, it was fun, bro. It was really fun. And I felt like I got an understanding of this show. So let's get into season 2. Let's get into how you felt about season 2. I don't even think it's worth it to go episode by episode unless you absolutely want to. I didn't even have the intention of that. I just want to talk about some important points that go on, some things that were, big takeaways. So I don't know if you brought any of those points with you today, but one thing I definitely want to open up on is the fallout of Omniman and the decision that he made and his, fight as what he feels he has to do because of where he comes from, and then what it leaves Mark and his mom in the situation of. I liked that point throughout this whole season. I loved picking up the pieces where it left off, this level of that's authentic. It wasn't like they did a time jump 4 or 5 years later and then it's like it's already. I feel like it was very fresh. Like this, they come back to the crib and it's thrash type. You know, I really enjoyed allowing us to get back into that feeling again after giving us 2-3 years worth of a wait for this to even come out. I appreciated them bringing it to that place. And then from there, building anew. I thought that was really smart trope wise. And I think that's part of why I watched so much, so fast. What about you? What'd you think about the aftermath of Omni-Man?
I would say that number one, I'm going to give you my whole feeling as a whole and then dive into what you said. This is what we waited all these years for. Interesting. I think that Deborah's storyline was my favorite from the whole season. Watching her deal with that as someone who has no power and is truly just like a victim of it all, and struggling to find her help in ways that Mark isn't. You know, Mark is able to push himself and dive himself into different things as a distraction or finding his purpose or whatever you want to call it. You know, we see Omni-Man go through change also, but her, it's a struggle and it's a real struggle. And even if you take out the superhero, my husband killed a bunch of people, everything out of that, you just look at her for what she represents as grief, whether it be as a widow or via divorce, and searching for a support system. I thought it was great how they handled everything involving her. Omni-Man, I enjoyed the fallout and the change from that we'll get into later. And then with Mark, he's the one that I, funny enough, was like least about, you know. But I think that just has to do with other things involving Mark and where his story goes and things like that. So, but for the, I guess it's just a lens that I was particularly looking at, you know, the characters that most wouldn't. How does, not the main character, but the one who did a bunch of stuff, how does he fall out from this? And then how does, you know, the not super powered, no support system handle that? So, but yeah, fallout part was cool. The fallout part was pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk more about Mark's personal then. What about Mark and Amber's relationship and how it progressed in this season? You know, that's another big piece of the plot. Still feeling a lot of what he was feeling in season 1 about trying to balance a relationship with a girl and have superpowers, and what's your place in that? It kind of gets to a sticking point here, right? Because he's got to fly all the way over there to do that and this. And I really enjoyed how they kind of like contrasted this idea of, you know, Debbie being like, when we wanted to go have wine in Paris, we could go do that. And it was this thing of romanticizing and this life that Omni-Man gave to Debbie, which ended up being fake, but then the very real wrestle that Mark is having as he's trying to navigate these powers like his dad had to, but it's just different intentions, different hearts behind it all. You know what I mean? We can't forget Omni-Man called his dad or his mom a pet almost,
right,
in the heat of the moment. So, you know, Amber is anything but to Mark. And yet my opinion on that before I hear yours is I don't like Amber, me personally. I've always thought Amber was one of the wackest characters in the entirety of these 2 seasons. I understand why she has to exist. I respect that. I do. I'm not saying I don't. I'm so glad she's gone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so glad that it's donezo. Spoiler alert. You know, like, because I think there's a level of like Mark playing it safe. Mark trying to have his cake and eat it too in more ways than one. And so when you say that, you know, Debbie has personified or been the vehicle of grief throughout the entirety of the show, I think the humanity and like the fully human experience that Mark is still feeling like he's entitled to have, I think he finally can let it go on the other end of his relationship with Amber. And I love the way they wrote that out. It was a slow burn. We already knew what it was. It was slow for him, not us. And yet it was a slow burn. So It was cool, bro. I liked it because we see a lot of shows with a lot of relationships and it was cool to have this cartoon talk to us like that. I was like, okay, y'all kind of cooking in the college dorm room. I like that. So what about you? What do you think about Amber and Mark?
I can't stand Amber.
Yeah, we know.
Can't stand Amber.
Yes, we know what it is.
I just think the first season, she reminds me of characters like Felicity or Iris from Arrow and the Flash.
Yeah.
And in the sense that they're so wishy-washy. I'm not going to do Kira the way you're trying to do Kira right now. So wishy-washy in their beliefs. You know what I'm saying? That I'm like, yo, you need to pick one because you painted multiple pictures that, of course, my man is going to get confused and he's going to feel lost. That being said, for this particular season, what I enjoyed about Amber is how they used her as a vehicle and Mark, their relationship, as like a sign of growth. I feel like looking at relationships in real life, that's how I'm taking apart this show a lot.
Yeah.
By the end of it, Mark needs to grow in who he is and the split dynamic inside of him that was left post Omniman. He needs to figure himself out before he's able to try this. Like you said, he's trying to have the cake, eat it too. He can't do that while having Amber in his life. Yeah. So he needs to separate that. And so, like you said, we've seen that separation happen after consequence, not choice.
Right.
But for choice, in the sense, I'm excited to see what happens next, how they portray that on screen.
Yeah.
But there are moments about their relationship that I enjoyed seeing it because it's just life. Like you said, the dorm room scene, and this episode they decide to focus on Alan because of what they were getting up to. At the end of the day, bro, that's a real experience for people.
Big facts.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to dive into it on the podcast, but it was cool to see some realism in that mixed in with the superhero nature of, and it makes you think about some funny things like, again, if you know what I'm talking about, her asking him to turn off the light and he speeds, lights off, and he's right back. And you just had to sit there and think about, now, how did he have to maneuver to do that in super speed? That dude looks silly as hell. We know it. They didn't show it, but he looks stupid having to maneuver his way out and then go back. But all that being said, it's real stuff.
It's real
for the people that are in that age range. And so I appreciate the vehicle, but not the character herself, but the vehicle that I'm happy this is it. I'm happy that this is the move that's being made. So it necessary, sure. But I only wish I felt more attached so that, I felt more about it than my own psych. Let me analyze and dissect this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to stop and acknowledge that, because I think Kirkman, especially when you think of like just Skybound and everything that has to do with like Walking Dead, I think he's very interested in talking about the human experience and the human psyche and the places we're pushed to the edge and what it takes to get us there, and where are our limits and how do we push past those limits in times that are appropriate. Like, he likes those types of ideas. So, this is around the time when I'm starting to see these nuances of the relationship, where I'm like, okay, I wish that we got more from this season. I'm already starting to see this through some of these episodes. But at the same time, this is such a long story, and this is still just such a small part, that if they can somehow make this last for 6, 7, 8 seasons, and do something that isn't often, possible, I'd be down for the ride, because I think that there's good stuff in it. Is it the best stuff? No, I never said that, but it is good stuff. And I think when it all compiles, it could be great stuff in time, so I'm already thinking this. And then,
if I may jump in, I think what they're able to do with some of the issues, in the sense of compiling 4 or 5 issues that could easily all be like full episodes themselves, and putting them together for 45 minutes was really well done.
Very well done.
for me, in regards to this show, it is a long journey. We are still in the very early story beats of this. I don't know if longer seasons would be the answer,
Yeah.
or less production time. We know that they're aiming for less production time, but what we see here is just like, again, 2 years, 3 years for, split 8 episode seasons,
Right.
like momentum lost after you only barely just got it started. And for what? The endings that we got for those middle episodes, your production is going to have to be faster, because you can't keep telling people wait till we get here, because what I'm hearing from that is if it took them 3 years to get this full second season out, knowing they did the third one at the same time and similar also, but I gotta wait another 2 to get a little bit more. When do I reach the end?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we are in an age of television where TV shows are taking longer to produce because of how higher of a quality they are. And yet, from season 1 to season 2, it felt like, to me, the season 1 quality was higher. Minus story, just everything else. So I'm down for the ride, because I rarely ever quit anything. But something needs to change to get this out in a more timely manner. If your entire stance is telling people just wait, just wait. So
you could tell that they're moving off the steam of, they know that they have a big story and it's an adaptation. Like, they're almost leaning on that like a crutch. And I think that that's corny. But at the same time, the meat and potatoes of the story is still something that is one of my more memorable TV experiences of the year so far, of sitting down and watching. And so it's like, I'm torn. This show leaves me torn as much as the title sequences from season 2. Like, with every layer and every episode, and they keep peeling back another layer, and it's like Invincible. They do that thing where they're like, in order to beat him, you're gonna have to beat. And then the thing, like, that's every time it hit, I was like, and then another thing I haven't even said yet, production wise, that I do like about this show too, bro, that's unique, is I love the way they play with credits. I think that joint is fire. I think the way that they do episode end, and then you watching credits and you like trying to stomach what you just saw, and then boom, another 3-5 minutes that lead into the next episode, or give you meanwhile, this is going on over here. Like, that can be the kind of stuff you're talking about that can set the show apart in its delivery. And I think they discovered that more in this season than they did in the last. Last season was a little bit more just episode vibe. I feel like they play with certain concepts really well. I hope that they explore that more. I think they need to take more creative liberties to justify the amount of time production's taking. Don't give us a boring story that's just like book to paper or book to show. Like, give me something unique. Give me something that's like, it stands out, because we living in a day and age where like Arcane League of Legends is out. Like, Edge Runners came out and stole awards. Like, there are cartoon and animated features and TV shows that are coming from adaptations that are taking awards and are taking the world by storm just as much as Invincible did in 21. So I definitely agree with you on that. One of the characters that I think has a very interesting storyline and has something very special, and I think they know it because it doesn't come until later, is Alan. I think Alan is a fire character introduced in season 1, slept on in terms of what his purpose is. And in season 2, especially that episode 3, they start to kind of suggest that Alan has a bigger role to play in this war against the what's it called, the Viltrumites, than maybe we thought that he did. And I love Alan, bro. I love the idea of a character that the more he's beat on and the more he's punched on and the more he gets wrecked, the stronger he can come back. That as a concept for a race is so fire. I just think it's so cool. What did you think about Alan's episode? And what do you think about Alan as a character? Do you like him? What's up with that?
Alan had one of my favorite episode archetypes. Because I mean, not that this was necessarily categorized as it, but a bottle episode. When the story's like, let's focus on this instead. You know, typically a bottle episode is a one location focused on a small crew, get it out, you know, The Fly, Breaking Bad, and all that. So it's not necessarily that. It just changed focus from one character to another. But I just liked when the screen popped and was like, Alan the Alien. He's cool. I like Alan. I like the focus on him. And I mean, by the end of the episode, you're sitting here like, what are we talking about right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that time to focus on him, but it also kind of just made me still just sit and wonder, like, wow, this is one of your 8 that you're putting out here. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
But
That's
Alan's cool, bro. I mean, you're hitting it.
What about let's pause and talk more about the Guardians of the Globe. Let's talk about Earth and the government and Donald's storyline in this. That's another thread of concept that's world building that's important to understand in the world of Invincible. You know, that's what the other thing is, bro. They're still world building, bro. They're still world building. Like most shows will get the world building off in season 1. But as much as there's plot progression, a lot of this is still world building in season 2. And that's also why I felt like it fell short of the expectations. Because how dare you tell me I got to wait another 3 years for you to build more world? You know what I mean? But not everybody can Denis Villeneuve build the whole world in 1 3-hour epic and then give you just slapping action for straight 2.5 hours, just blaming on your dome, you know? It's like, and not everybody wants that too, I guess. But like the whole concept of the Guardians of the Globe and these heroes for hire, and they on this and Adam and Donald, bro. Donald. What did you think about Donald, bro, when you found out about that? When you saw that storyline unfolding?
That reminded me of season 1 in a sense of mystery, the why. I like that. You know, I think it was, I don't remember what episode it was, but when he goes out to where the explosion was and he's searching and he finds his glasses in the rubble, and you're like, bro, I mean, I get it. There's 1,000 glasses out there, but you got to connect the pieces to end up like, you know, to get to that end point where you're just like, he's what? What is he?
Yeah.
That's interesting because it opens doors. You know, I like that it opens doors to other possibilities. The Guardians of the Globe. I like Mr. I think Immortal. Is that his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's played by a brilliant actor. I mean, Ross Marquand, I believe, is how you pronounce his last name. He's dope. He's on The Walking Dead. He's been in the MCU. He's Charles X over on X-Men 97, and he's just, I like him a lot, but I like that concept of trust. I don't trust this guy, not even because of him, but because of his dad.
Yeah.
And we see that with Debbie. We see her go to those support groups where they're not supposed to share too many details, but then she overshares after the guy overshares, and he's like, don't come back here. You know what I mean? Trust because of something that somebody else did. It's like when you go to school, I mean, I didn't have this problem, but you go somewhere and people know something about you. Oh, your aunt is blank. So now we gonna trust you. Oh, your brother was who? Oh, you're a troublemaker then. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it reminded me of. So I enjoyed those pieces of the storyline from season 2. Yeah, I think it's the concepts of the storylines that interested me more than the execution in some ways.
I feel that. They have a lot going on at the same time, man. Like
but
Guardians of the Globe basically almost getting wiped out by those lizard folk. It's like out of nowhere in like episode 6 or 7. It's like, oh, this is happening and we have 1 episode left. This is kind of crazy, you know? And it's just it's an interesting and unique way of deciding you're going to grow a show and its fan base. But yeah, I think we can sit here and talk about everything. It's hard to, because there's so much to talk about. There's so many characters. Every episode has like 20 to 30 characters that are on screen for even just but a moment. You know, we could talk about the relationship that Monster Girl has with Robot. We could talk about more Adam Eve. You know what I mean? I think Adam Eve and her family, how she doubts herself because of where she comes from. It's almost like a type of show that if like you want a buckshot way of finding a character that you might connect with or a storyline that you might connect with. There's probably one in there for you in some way, shape, or form. But it's hard when the main storyline is one that's just so, I can't stand this man. I can't stand this man, Mark, bro. He be pissing me off. Like, I'm standing in front of the camera, like in front of the TV, like, yo, bro, I'm about to spaz on you right now if you don't do what you need to do right now. No, sir, you're not on this. And so, like, I want to talk a little bit about Angstrom. I do. I think we need to talk about Angstrom. Right? We see him. We see him as a big baddie of the season, quote unquote. I don't even know if "big" is the word, italicized. You know what I mean? Man, there is some weird shit going on in this show from its flow and decisions to bring certain people up. You seeing Anissa in episode 7, she over here popping up with the Viltrumite. You like, dang, she a big baddie? Nah, she's just here for a sec. She's gone. Now he's got to fight this guy who can teleport and create new dimension portals. Oh, that's the big baddie? But then, like, when you let it sit, like, when this guy popped up, I don't give two shits about Angstrom. I really don't. Even though we saw him in the multiversal first episode and we see him in the last season, like, we get it. There's a little storyline y'all try to build out and make him a bit. Really what he is again, another concept, another idea of, like, Mark's super, like, existence and how it's going to always exist. And it's either he's going to own it and he's going to rock it and he's going to move forward with it, or he's going to keep living a life of denial and allowing the people around him to be hurt by him trying to live in both worlds at the same time. Like, he is the linchpin point in the form of a villain right there in his home, newly built, attacking his mother and brother. Like, it's as real as it gets. I didn't care for Angstrom. So when he gets wrecked and it all goes down, and I don't really care. And I don't know if Robert Kirkman, who wrote the last episode, actually wanted you to give a shit about Angstrom. I think he cares more about what it means for Mark to have mushed this guy's face in. You know what I mean? I think that is more important. But, like, when he mushed his face in, he's on the other end of that. What did you think? Like, what were you like? Were you like, finally, this guy, like, activates? Like, okay, so you're actually in there, bitch. Like, come on, bro.
I'm mixed. I'm mixed. Number one, I mean, like him or not, Sterling K. Brown is going to do Sterling K. Brown things when he voices his character. So shout outs to Sterling.
Shout outs to Sterling.
I feel like it was just interesting that they decided to start and end it off with this. I mean, again, I at this point know what's coming in almost every aspect. And so when he does everything and, he has to get through the portals over and over again, he pulls up with the Fortnite sniper and smacks him across the face with the Fortnite sniper and all that, leading to the end. You're right. I think it is more about Mark versus Langstrom or Angstrom. I think you weren't supposed to necessarily give a crap. And if you were, then I didn't. And oops, or maybe not oops, depending on how you brought it out. But I'm also torn in both senses of, like, damn, I wish this was actually somebody that I felt like deserved it. Like, I get he deserved to get his ass whooped. But it's like, after watching some of the other people you fought this season, I guess you are a teenager who's going to lash out at the wrong times.
Sure.
And it's just, damn, I want to see that fight in you more when it truly matters, because here was just overkill.
Yeah.
And that's the point, to showcase that he can snap and he could turn out like his pops, and somebody fearing that caused it to happen in the first place. And now you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of doing what you did, accident or not, you did it, you committed. And I'm excited to see what it means for the future, but I didn't necessarily care for the character it happened to. It is a vehicle for Mark. It's plot building for Mark. It's all for Mark. So it was cool to just see him snap but it also wasn't as cool as I think it could have been if it was somebody who also would have looked at him like, yo, damn, bro. With Spider-Man, when Spider-Man doesn't hold back, I feel like you really feel it, and I didn't feel it
Yeah,
here.
they did a poor job at that.
But I also think that's for another reason that I will talk about later. But for Angstrom, that's how I felt.
Sure.
Do you know what you are trying to get into next?
No, I think you just hit the nail on the head there in terms of power. So I think we should just get into that as a trope. I think as a theme. Well, because it's overarching throughout the whole show, and
right.
Other than talking about that point, because the show's literally called Invincible, I feel like it's a good bow on themes in general for the whole show. So you let me know what you think about that.
I want to talk about Omni-Man straight up, just him and Mark coming back together, bro. I want to sit here and talk about Mark rightfully being angry, like, you were my father and you dipped after being the worst person on earth. And Mark's anger, you can tell, is split between you were a bad guy who did bad things and you were my father who abandoned me, And we see that happen at the season 1 finale when he did all those bad things and he still says, but you're my dad. Like, so when we meet him here, it's a teenage boy angry at his father. And now he's saying he started a new family. But then you realize, like, yo, Omni-Man, who was acting all tough, he's feeling some type of way about what he did also. He's having people choose him to be his leader. He's having a child with someone who is legally not allowed to by the rules of his race. And then in the episode where they're fighting to keep everybody safe, he's like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I care? That's what I like to see. Someone who did something like that, feeling those effects and not just taking it on the chin. No, he split too. I like Mark and Omni-Man's, like, mirroring, with both of them heading in weird directions that are going to reflect each other at some point.
Yeah.
So when Omni-Man pulled back up, granted, they ended off their little 4-episode thing and then had to sit and wait. So that was already like a kind of like a sour taste. But I thought it was dope how they reflected Omni-Man. Like, I'm still low-key trying to be a piece of shit, but I'm also wearing a mask. Like, I'm wearing that piece of shit mask right now, where before I wasn't. And I'm letting that seep through, and you're reading it off of me. And just watching both of these hurt characters deal with their pain in 2 different ways, it was really cool to see.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I like what you said there about, it's really like if Omni-Man is the definition of invincible as a Viltrumite, and then he's deconstructing what that means to have a heart, then we're seeing Mark become invincible, pun intended, and despite his heart, despite how much he wants to feel every little thing and consider it so deeply, it's like the power that is on his shoulders is a power that stretches beyond even his dimension. That's what Angstrom teaches him. Angstrom's mad that he's bodied him in multiple dimensions, something Mark can't even fathom conceptually, can't even understand why he's going so hard. Like, why you broke my mom's arm? Like, you're wilding. Like, so when you talk about that concept of Omni-Man kind of breaking down and Invincible being built up, and then you start talking about Alan, and Alan literally erased that when broken down builds up. Like, you start to get an idea of some of what it is that Kirkman's trying to get into the weeds of for these characters, and the idea of like power and stuff. And yeah, their relationship being this human thing at the core is extremely important. I think it is important. I think it's one of the grounding aspects of this season and of the entire show as of right now. And it is a grounding aspect in the novel, but I think if you never even knew it was a novel, that is one of the things that is consistent. Despite, if that's the tree, there are so many branches. Like, there's so many branches, and yet people see a big tree and they're like, dang, that thing is beautiful. Look how long it's existed for. So I just think, like, when it comes to these ideas, I hope that we start to see more looping of ideas, like things connecting in more connective tissue as seasons come. I think that's another thing that will help this show to set itself apart from some of the other shows that are in this genre and kind of medium. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just, what do you think about Oliver though? Like, what did you think about him having like a sibling? Like, I thought that was crazy too. You know, I thought that was kind of wild. I thought the way that Debbie took in Oliver was kind of crazy as well. I thought I was like,
I think
yo,
it's innocence. I think it's that sense of you know, you're an innocent bystander in so much pain and loss. And Debbie had a hole in her heart, you know? And I mean, I don't want to say that Debbie's going to fill this hole with this, but I mean, I think that baby is proof of the good inside Omni-Man.
mm,
You know, it's like a total 180 of, I know you don't necessarily know Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire
right.
like that, but the main character, you would say, of the first movie and one of the main characters of the first book, Ned Stark, he went away to war. And, you know, he at this time had one child with his wife. He's a noble. He's one of the highest nobles. He's the king of the like one of the 7 countries.
Mm.
And he comes back from war with a child that is not his wife's and says, "This is my child." And he's known as one of the most honorable men in all the lands. And that child is a marking of dishonor on his name. And she, as his wife, hates this child for the rest of his life. Now there's things and twists and turns regarding this child that I don't know if you know,
Yeah.
but I like how it compares to this, where it's like, where this child over on Game of Thrones is seen as this dishonorable mark on otherwise most good man that the world has ever seen. Here we have this, now one of the worst men that this world has ever seen, a symbol of the good inside of him.
Yeah,
so, and she is seeing that good in the man that she knew versus the other way around. Right. I just liked seeing that with this baby. And I think it's special for Mark too, because maybe Mark can look at this sibling and see, like many older siblings sometimes see, what was lost with me was found here. What I didn't get is here. And I think that he's taking the route of not being bitter, but being, this is a beautiful thing. So I like that concept of what he represents.
Yeah, it's good, man. I agree. That's a really well said. Yeah, I loved his character and what it brought out of the family too. Just Mark and Debbie themselves standing together amidst their trauma and deciding to do this together. I think that it's also that, you know, she said, I'm pretty sure she has a line where she says that she's doing this not for Omni-Man, but for her son. And it's like, nah, you saying that because it's big and bad, but there's also parts that there's still attachment. And then they let that loop back around at the end of the season when Omni-Man admits that he still misses Debbie. There's just a lot, man. It takes you across the spectrum from human moments to super moments to fights that are extremely wild and graphic and crazy to little tiny like intimate moments between characters.
True.
What I want to ask you, like, what you're excited for. What do you think this show needs to have going forward? What do you want to see fleshed out?
First things first, I want to talk about the animation of the show. I mean, I feel like that's something that's a big one. Stylized, you know what I mean? Rushed, whatever you want to call it. If it's stylized, okay, I could respect stylized production. And at the same time, I'm just kind of like, I'm not fully sold on the look. There are times where I think, wow, this looks glorious. And there were times where I'm like, I'm not here for this. The first season, I was willing to let it slide because it's always new. The first season is always room to say you can improve. The second season is where I'm going to hit it a little bit harder, especially if you're going to take 3 years and there are pieces of animation where I'm like, I don't see 3 years. And I think what hurts is something that we're going to be talking about later in July is another animated show that came out this year that blew me away with some of its sequences and just raw animation that came from it. And so when I look here, I'm just like, y'all are calling this the best animated superhero show ever. And off of animation alone, I know that's not all that matters, but I'm here like, it's passable at the end of the day for me. But I'm liking Young Justice better.
Oh yeah.
I'm liking other things that choose the more simplified way better. So I would like to see a more polished, cleaned up animation style. I know they had their joke where they're like, well, we like to save money by doing panning shots and not showing the character's mouth moving and all that stuff at the start of episode 7. I'm like, ah ha ha, that's cool, but are you trying to cover? Like, are you covering for yourself?
Right.
You know what I get? And I'm sitting here like, all right. Hopefully that's one thing. Another thing, Mark, now this is growth time. Growth time, Mark. Fallout time is over. Growth time has begun. Let's see what you got. No Amber. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully
Right.
Adam Eve. Hopefully some of that.
It's looking like it's coming.
But you've just taken...
If you know, you know.
You've taken a step that you didn't want to take. That makes you now feel more like the villainous father that you say that you have. What does that look like? How do you interact with the people in your life that you know have expected stuff of you? How do you interact with them? How does this change relationships off of rip? How does this change the public perception of Mark?
Yeah.
You know, Guardians of the Globe, what are they gonna think?
Right.
I'm just interested to see how they put to screen the growth and all of that he needs to go through as a character now.
Yeah.
And I hope to get it sooner rather than later. And, you know, I know one actor that they may have hired for this next season. So, unfortunately, they got me. I have to say I'm excited.
Who is it?
I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, yeah.
The Walking Dead, Negan. He's on The Boys right now, season 4. Love that guy, man. Love that guy. I just... You know, a lot of the Walking Dead cast find their ways onto Invincible. The entire Guardians of the Globe from that first episode were voiced by Walking Dead cast members.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm there for Jeffrey Dean, you know? So, I'm excited for those things. I want to see that get better. Voice acting, I really don't have a problem with in most instances of this show. I think that's the one thing that I couldn't say that they really hit on well. Shout out to
they know that.
Steven, you know? JK, all of them. So
I think they know that. I know they're always throwing around how many A-list, B-list actors are in this show, even in small capacities. I mean, Mark Hamill's in this. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. So usually here at Cuzzo-Op, we'd go actor by actor, but like I said, there's just so many that I just, you know, show love to each and every single one of you guys. I feel like it's great. It's so good. You play your characters very well. Even if you're only on screen for an episode, you know, you play them well. It's a big part of why it feels like a real world to live in. I think it's because the voice actors kill that. So yeah, I agree. I wouldn't necessarily like need anything in that area. I think for me, what I'd want to see is what you just said. Like, I want to see Mark enter into like dark mode. Like, I need him to go dark mode in his hotel bar. You know what I mean? Like, I need him to really like clock in. You know, I'm not saying that he needs to be evil, but I'm just saying like, I'm trying to see him beat on some dudes, like for real. Like for real. Like, I really want to see him like wail on cats. And like, I the other side of the spectrum. Like, when is it gonna come? Like, when it's like, all right, you spend all this time trying not to be too much. You know what I mean? And now you're not enough in a lot of areas. You're getting beat on. But like, what about the other where it's like now you letting the power out so much that you trying to figure out how to like get back toward the middle? Like, I need some of that. I want some of that in my life. I want some of that. And I think he's in a good position to do it without it being 100% like a dark thing. Like, he could have been dark in this season and he wasn't dark. He was still wussy, which is cool. Whatever. Fine. That's fine. But he's got the people around him, closer to him, that are super. Less the people that weren't, and more the people that were and are, that can relate to him in his situation. even down to Rex. I love how Rex and him, how their relationship kind of developed a little bit in this season. They had a couple convos after Rex, he goes to save him and everything. I like that, especially with where him and Adam Eve are going. So it's like, I want more of that. I want more of like, I'm a superhero, dog. That's what I do full time. I'm outside. Like that's what I want. But then on top of that, I think I also need something more solid as a storyline from the first episode to the last episode that has a lot of gravity. First season had that. The idea of Omni-Man being the bad guy was that. This season kind of lacked an identity in that regard. And it was almost like, it was a little bit better when Omni-Man was on Earth. I'm not going to lie. You know what I mean? I need some of that. And I think they know it. And I think they would give us a dimensional difference in the first episode because they know it. I think we're going to call it production issues and all that and say they were still trying to figure out which direction they're trying to go. Well, I don't know. I'm going to give y'all the benefit of the doubt.
Right,
but I will say the experience of watching this show episode by episode was a great experience. I did enjoy watching the show. I had fun. I like the way the show goes off. I hope they keep all of that. Like keep all of the momentum, but just figure out ways to be a little bit more poignant with the way that you deliver those points. That's all. That's all I would like. And I'll be there. I'll watch it. I'm not jacking it as 10 out of 10. I think Rotten Tomatoes having it as a damn near 100 is interesting. You know what I mean? I do think it's worth noting that on Rotten Tomatoes, the user review, the audience score went from a 98 to like an 89 off of season 2. And I think that's about right. We headed toward a direction where it's like, okay, it was hot when it popped, but what are y'all doing?
Right.
Season 3 is going to be a very deciding factor for them, a big deciding factor for them.
I think if season 2 is required to be its weakest season to launch into the stratosphere, okay. And
that's what they're saying too. They're saying they don't have to take a break again. So
I just hope that we don't have to sit here and wait and wait and wait and wait. So, I mean, I'll be there.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, man, I just we'll have another conversation soon about Amazon's niche as they've been building up their market. I've been finding something very incredibly interesting about what they're putting out there. And so
yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, Amazon, if you're going to keep cooking and you're going to keep throwing gas on shows, I'm not against it. You know what I mean? Go do your thing. Do your thing. Invincible is definitely one of the things that in the last 5 years, it's been cool to see how many people are talking about that show. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Especially when they used to hate on us for watching Young Justice. Especially when they used to hate on us for watching shows like that. When we were younger, low key, it was like, oh, you watch that stuff? Hey, everyone's watching that.
When they see one speck of blood, they might feel like it's different. So,
yeah, I think
like I said, I'm going to get into that later.
Yeah, it's all good. That's all right. We could be quote unquote mature with it. But, you might see the speck of blood on the cover art for the episode. We here. We got to buy a little in. Come on, bro. We got to catch it. But yeah, man, we thank you for tapping in on our conversation on Invincible. Again, we're going to have some more conversations this summer about different TV shows, movies that are coming out, and even some video games toward the back end of the year, end of summer. So continue to stay plugged in with us here at Cuzzo-Op. If you know someone that liked Invincible and would be interested in hearing what they think about our thoughts, send the episode out to them. We're everywhere you listen to podcasts, but especially out on YouTube. If you go into the comment section, we've got prompts, questions, conversations that are happening. Feel free to join in on the conversation. And again, follow us on all platforms. Stay tuned in on our link tree. Just stay tapped in and close. We're going to keep hitting you with maybe double episode weeks, or maybe, a little extras like we did with Pixar. Just stay tapped in. Stay tapped in. We're here. And know every time you get into an episode of Cuzzo-Op, you're going to find 3 things. It's 2 cousins, 1 podcast, and endless entertainment. Be good.